Welcome back inside TD Garden, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined once again by Josue Pavon of the Green Street blog on WEEI.com, following a Game 1, 123-111 Celtics improbable victory over the Washington Wizards in the Eastern Conference semifinals. I got to say, Josue, about 6 minutes into this game, I never thought we would be standing here after game number one talking about the miraculous effort of the Celtics. Isaiah Thomas with 33 points, Al Horford 21 points, 10 assists and 9 rebounds, almost a triple-double. I thought we would be talking about how there were mismatches galore all along the front court, and the Celtics were run out of their own building in game number one. But the Celtics managed to outscore the Wizards 71-42 over the second and third quarters. This game took a drastic and really, frankly, unexpected turn, I thought, and the Celtics got another heroic effort from now a toothless Isaiah Thomas as he lost a front tooth trying to come around a screen from Otto Porter in the second quarter of this game.
Yeah, you couldn't even script this one, Trags. I mean, from that to seeing guys step up off the bench to seeing Jaylen Brown check in with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I mean, who would have predicted that?
And those were significant minutes at that stage of the game as Washington was coming back.
Very significant. And I think he had part of the reason why the Celtics were able to, put away the Wizards in those last 6 minutes. But the other biggest part was not only what Isaiah Thomas did to set up the Celtics in that spot, but what Al Horford did from that stretch. I mean, from when he checked back in, much like he did in Game 5 against the Chicago Bulls, he just sort of took control of the offense. He scored 7 points in those final few minutes or so, 5 or 6 minutes, just quality minutes, quality plays. Set up Jaylen Brown. I feel like kind of took some bit of the coverage from Washington. Jaylen Brown comes in, not only makes a corner three-pointer in such a tough spot, but then comes back the very next possession, finds Jay Crowder behind the arc, and he sinks one down. But I think it all started with Al Horford. I mean, Al Horford was the one scoring those points, 5 straight points for the Celtics, and then he made a huge jump shot, I thought, with about 3 minutes left that put them up by double digits.
All right, the Celtics start this game, as we mentioned, incredibly slowly. They were down 16-0 before you could blink an eye. The Wizards really were doing everything that they wanted to. They extended the lead to 20-3, and the Celtics were getting run out of their own building. And Isaiah Thomas was one of the only players contributing early with 12 points, but another, I thought, unsung hero of that first quarter, keeping the Celtics within shooting range, was Kelly Olynyk. He had some big buckets while the rest of the team was ice cold.
Yeah, him and Kelly were actually the only ones who scored. I think besides a layup from Bradley, they were responsible for all of the Celtics' points. Really kept them afloat in that first quarter. They needed that. They needed someone to come off the bench and sort of keep the team, keep the distance at a respectable margin. And Kelly Olynyk was that guy. What I love about Kelly is when he puts the ball on the floor. I like to see him not just try to jack up a three. I love the effort, on the defensive end, kind of making the right switches, the rebounding. I mean, Kelly Olynyk put together the type of game that they need him to be off the bench. They're going to need this type of consistency, and that's always been the biggest problem when we talk about Kelly Olynyk. Can he do this on a consistent level? Celtics are going to need that in this series because this is going to be a long series, Trags. I mean, don't be fooled here. Don't think that because of this Game 1 performance that the Wizards are going to just roll over here. They're not going to roll over. They're a very, very talented group, and the Celtics are going to have to continue to do this night in and night out if they want to beat them in this series.
See, I don't know if I agree with that completely, Josue. I thought this game was more than just a single game, just because, in terms of a victory for the Celtics, simply because the Wizards were up so big, and you figured if they could steal game number one, they could go back to Washington, and certainly I thought they had the better of the play. Markieff Morris goes down, and that really changed the dynamic of the Wizards' front court. They were really outscored badly, and that's when the Celtics started really getting hot from beyond the arc because they didn't have a guy to go out and challenge guys like Jay Crowder, like Avery Bradley from beyond the arc. The Celtics, Josue, were an amazing 19 of 39 from three-point land. It was a stunning number from three-point territory that really, I think, was one of the key factors in helping the Celtics really stem the tide and turn the game around.
Yeah, that's true, Trags, but at the end of the day, if the Wizards do take Game 2, the momentum sort of shifts in their favor because they tie the series up. They'll head to Washington, and Bradley Beal and John Wall, they've been tremendous throughout this postseason. I mean, I know it's still way early in the series to predict what's going to happen between those two guys, but I think the biggest factor is what Bradley Beal's been able to bring to the table, because sometimes he's been in and out throughout the season. You know, he's not always the healthiest in the backcourt. He's also missed a lot of games, but then when he's in this stride that he's in, he had one hell of a game tonight. John Wall put together a good game. I mean, we've seen John Wall do better than what he did tonight, but I mean, it's funny. We talked during halftime, and I'm thinking to myself, John Wall's gonna go off here in the second half. He contributed. He scored some points, but he didn't necessarily go off the way I expected. I do expect that huge performance from him. I know we saw what Isaiah Thomas did tonight. 33 points. You can expect the same thing from John Wall, especially in Game 2. I will not be surprised if he scores over 30 points. And also, yeah, losing Morris is big for them because he does a lot of things for them on both ends of the floor. But at the same time, I mean, you have to get at least, like we talked about in the Chicago series, you need about 70 points from your three best players from the Celtics. Is that attainable throughout this entire series? We'll see. Can the Celtics do that? I think they can. However, the Washington Wizards have those guys that can close out a game, close out a not so bad margin, whether it's 7-8 points. If John Wall lights up the fourth quarter, that's going to be the deciding factor in that game. However, the third quarter in this game, that's something that we've always talked about all season, how important that third quarter is. The Celtics outscored the Washington Wizards big time in that third quarter, and I think that gave them a big advantage, heading into the fourth.
36-16 was the figure, Josue, that the Celtics were able to outscore the Wizards in that third quarter. We mentioned Markieff Morris. He said after the game about his left ankle that was sprained badly when Al Horford defended him on a mid-range jumper, actually right behind us in the first half. He said, "It ain't broke. I'll be definitely playing in game number 2, which is Tuesday night." And, the Wizards better hope that his optimism is well-founded because they're definitely going to need him. Another factor we need to bring up, Josue, two things about the Wizards that I think were exposed. They can't play defense, and their bench is woeful. Beyond Bogdanovich hitting a couple of threes to bring the Wizards back close within 3 points in the fourth quarter, and Oubre contributing a little bit in the first half, their bench was non-existent.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, we're comparing benches here. I think Celtics clearly get to have the favor in who produces more out of the two. However, with that being said, though, like you said about Bogdanovich, I mean, again, if the Celtics don't have that big third quarter, I mean, those 10 points all came in the fourth quarter, would have been much more of a difference in this game if, the Celtics didn't have that large cushion going into the final frame. Bogdanovich, I mean, he can do that. He can score 10 points in 3 minutes the way he did today. And when that happens, I think the Celtics are going to have to really buckle down defensively. Obviously, he's not a great defender. He's not going to create defensive stops. But on the offensive end, he's going to produce. Aubrey, he can also contribute. Brandon Jennings, he has the chance to do that. He's not a consistent contributor.
I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah, he's not a consistent contributor, but, like you said, I'm with you on that. The Celtics do have that in their favor. They have a much deeper bench in this team, so that's something that they're going to have to utilize, like we saw today with Jaylen Brown coming in that fourth quarter.
I don't see, Josue, any scenario where the Wizards win this series and the combination of Bradley Beal, John Wall, and Marcin Gortat, who was the best player on the court in the first quarter, no question. All three of them have probably got to play 40 minutes, 42 minutes a game for the Wizards to even have a chance. Let's talk again about Isaiah Thomas, because how can you not? He got back at 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, just about 8 hours before tip. 9 hours before tip of game number 1 here on Sunday at TD Garden. Obviously an emotional time for him on Saturday, attending the funeral back in Tacoma, Washington, of his sister China, 22 years of age, passed away in a one-car accident back on April 15th. And he told ESPN's Doris Burke after the game, Josue, "Everything I do for her in basketball." And I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, but that's what his message was to Doris Burke. And he had to fight back tears in the postgame immediately following the final buzzer. In the postgame press conference, Jeff Twiss of the Celtics asked everybody to kind of respect Isaiah's wishes and not ask specifically about the last 24 hours. But Al Horford had an interesting comment about sitting right next to Isaiah on the dais. He said that it's unreal what Isaiah's been able to do. I don't know if I could have done the same thing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and that obviously speaks volumes because he does have two sisters. Al Horford comes from a large family, so for him to say that, that's something that goes a long way. I love Brad Stevens' support, of course, throughout this tough time, continues to say how, he still can't believe how Isaiah Thomas is being able to do this. I loved how before the game he talked about, when he was asked, have you spoken to Isaiah Thomas, ever since he came back? And he's like, yeah, but we didn't talk about basketball. We talked about how tough it is to speak at a funeral.
And, not to interrupt you there, Josue, but I think that shows Isaiah Thomas the perspective and the back that the Celtics have for him.
Right.
They have his back during this very personal time.
Absolutely. In one timeout when sort of it was like the wholesale substitution that Brad Stevens made where the game was out of reach and they knew they were going to win. A great moment. I don't know if someone took a picture of it. I would love to see that. Avery Bradley sort of came over to Isaiah Thomas and sort of put his arm over him or arm around his shoulder, and Thomas just sort of like leaned on him a bit, just sort of. It was almost like he's just like
letting go.
Right.
Yeah.
He just exhaled, and Bradley sort of just gave him like a pat on the back, like, I can imagine he said something to the effect of, great job, great work, I'm here for you, man. And that's just, those two, what they do in the backcourt together and how important they are to the team, in comparison to their relationship and their friendship. It goes a long way for this team. And they as well as Isaiah Thomas performing at such a high level for this team, right. Avery Bradley's been right there almost every step of the way in terms of playing amazing basketball on both ends of the floor. Just those two together. I just thought that was a great moment, Trags. I know that really stood out to me today throughout this game.
All right, Al Horford called it unreal. Brad Stevens called IT's performance over the playoffs since the loss of his sister unfathomable. Can't imagine having to go through the same type of thing. And really, it is a remarkable story that the Celtics are penning right now, or penning, I should say, right now, as they have won 5 straight playoff games after losing the first 2 to the Chicago Bulls. It continued here on Sunday as the Celtics overcome deficits of 16-0 and 20-3 and roll the Washington Wizards 123-111 to take a 1-0 lead in this best-of-7 Eastern Conference semifinal series. Game number 2 will be Tuesday night here at TD Garden before the series shifts down to Washington, D.C. for games 3 and 4. We'll have you covered on the Green Street blog on WEEI.com. Follow all of our coverage there. Josue will certainly have you covered there. We'll have also video from all the press conferences up on the blog ASAP. Inside TD Garden, following a Celtics game number 1 win over the Washington Wizards, he is Josue Pavon. I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.